I've always believed the Pacific Northwest was beautiful, untamed, towering evergreens, dense underbrush, and damp, earthy air, the kind of place where silence speaks louder than civilization ever could. I went hiking alone that weekend to get away from everything, the screens, the emails, the endless scroll of fake connection. But out there, in the moss-covered quiet, I found something ancient, something that shouldn't exist, something watching. I started the trail late, too late, honestly. A poor decision born out of overconfidence. The sun was already dipping when I parked my Subaru at the remote trailhead near Mount Rainier. No cell signal, no other cars, just me and a rusted Forest Service sign barely clinging to a bullet-riddled post. The trail was narrow, hemmed in by thick Douglas firs and red cedars, with ferns thick enough to trip you if you didn't watch your footing. The deeper I hiked, the more it felt like I was slipping into another world. No distant hum of highways, no birdsong even, just the creak of old trees and the wet crunch of needles beneath my boots. Maybe an hour in, I heard it, not loud, not close, but unmistakably not me. A branch snapped somewhere uphill, behind and to the left. Then another, measured, heavy. I paused, heart thudding. I tried to convince myself it was a deer, maybe an elk. But every few seconds I heard another crunch of something big, deliberate, walking just out of sight, matching my pace. I picked up speed. The trail narrowed further into a grove of ancient cedar trees, their trunks wide as trucks. The air smelled thick and loamy, a mix of damp wood, fungus, and something else. Something sour, animal-like, but not in the way of deer or fox. It had a bile edge to it, wet fur, coppery blood, and rot. I covered my nose with my sleeve, but it lingered, clinging to the back of my throat. I turned to look behind me. Nothing but shadows, but I felt it, the weight of being watched. Not just watched, targeted. You ever walk into a room and know someone's staring at you? Multiply that by 10 and stretch it across a wilderness where no help's coming. Then the sound changed. It wasn't just footsteps now. There was a breathing sound, low, rough, wet, a sound of lungs that shouldn't be that big, dragging in air like a dying animal, slow, controlled. It was exhaling louder than it inhaled, almost like a growl, but too steady for anger. It was waiting. I stopped dead in my tracks. The brush to my right rustled, just slightly. I held my breath, frozen. Then I smelled. It, stronger now, like the air had shifted and carried it right to me. It was a wall of odor, musk, filth, and meat, long gone sour. I gagged. There was a thick wall of sword ferns and salmonberry bushes where the rustling came from. I squinted, trying to pierce the green gloom. A shape moved, just for a second. Not fully visible, but huge. A dark, matted outline between the trees. Taller than any man, broader than a bear. I couldn't see a face, only the ripple of furred muscle and the impression of a head ducking behind a trunk as soon as I'd spotted it. My legs took over. I ran. I didn't care about the trail anymore. I just barreled downhill, slapping branches out of my face, stumbling over roots. The smell followed me. The sound followed me. Not constant, but punctuated. Every few seconds, something behind me would snap a tree limb or grunt low and guttural, as if testing how close it could get without me seeing it. It wanted me to know it was there. At one point, I tripped and fell hard on my elbow, landing in a patch of wet moss and slick pine needles. I lay there, winded, and I swear I heard it breathing again, just feet away. I rolled over, heart pounding, and saw a dark shape flash between the trunks about 20 yards upslope. It moved fast, too fast, but its footsteps were heavy, too heavy for silence. It knew how to move through the forest, to stalk. I saw a handprint in the mud next to me, 5 fingers, thick, broad, the size of a dinner plate. No claw marks, human-like, but not. I scrambled to my feet and kept running. Eventually the trail spat me out near a ravine. There was a fallen log acting as a makeshift bridge, which I remembered from my hike in. I didn't think. I just scrambled across it, nearly falling as the bark slipped under my boots. Then I heard it. Not a grunt, not a breath. It screamed. A howling, guttural, unearthly roar that shook the trees and split the air like a lightning strike. Not an animal, not even a monster. It sounded like grief and rage and hate, all in one awful tone, like it hated me for seeing it, for being here. I ran until my legs couldn't carry me, until the trees started thinning, until I saw the glint of my car under the rising moonlight. I didn't look back. I don't know if it followed me all the way or stopped at that scream, but I felt it, eyes burning into the back of my skull, not watching anymore, hunting. I don't hike alone anymore. I don't go near the woods without others, and I sure as hell never go off trail. I reported the incident to a ranger who nodded politely, but looked at me like I was just tired or rattled. He said, "We get bear reports sometimes," and handed me a pamphlet. I still have the photo I took earlier that day, the one I snapped before I left the trailhead. There's a blur in the trees behind me, a shape that doesn't quite match the trunks. Too tall, too dark, no detail, but you know something's there if you look long enough. I haven't gone back. I never will. Somewhere deep in those cedar woods, something still watches, and it remembers me. There are forests in New England that feel ancient, not just old in the way trees grow old, but timeless. Places where the air hangs heavy with memory, where every mossy rock and twisted root feels like a warning carved by nature itself. I wasn't thinking about any of that when I agreed to the hike. It was early October. The leaves had just started turning that bruised gold and deep crimson, and the air had that kind of crispness that makes you feel more alive than you deserve to be. Me, my girlfriend Jess, her brother Caleb, and our friend Sasha all piled into Caleb's beat-up Subaru and drove north out of Brattleboro toward the Hollow Pine State Preserve, somewhere near the Vermont-New Hampshire border. We'd heard of it from a Reddit thread of all places. Some user who claimed they used to survey land out there said the trails had been decommissioned years ago. Too many weird animal sightings, broken signage, and a few lost hikers whose names never made the news. We thought it was perfect. We were idiots. We parked the car just outside a rusted gate where the pavement gave way to gravel and pine needles. No reception, no trail map, just a rotting wooden sign with most of the letters eaten away by time. HLLWPNSPSEV. We brought 2 tents, flashlights, Jess's DSLR, a couple cans of bear spray, and enough food for 2 nights. We planned to hike in a few miles, camp near an old fire tower the Reddit guy mentioned, and then loop back out. The air was pine sweet and cold as we shouldered our packs and pushed deeper into the forest. For the first hour, it was beautiful. Towering white pines and sugar maples creaked overhead, filtering sunlight through a red-orange canopy. The ground was thick with fallen leaves that muffled our steps, but occasionally we'd hear branches snap somewhere off trail. We chalked it up to deer, maybe a moose. But Caleb, who grew up hunting in New Hampshire, started getting twitchy. "That wasn't a deer," he muttered after a loud crack echoed off to the east. "You always say that," Jess laughed. "No," he said, stopping in his tracks. "That sounded heavy." We all stopped, listened. For a moment, the forest was dead silent. Not even birdsong, just the wind whispering through the hollowed trunks. And then, something moved, a shuffle of foliage, a breath slow and deep, like something inhaling right behind the tree line. "Probably a bear," Sasha offered, trying to sound casual. "Maybe," Caleb said, "but keep your spray handy." We reached the fire tower by sundown. It was a rusted skeleton of iron and rot, wrapped in vines and half collapsed. But the clearing gave us space to set up camp. We built a fire, cooked instant noodles, talked about dumb stuff to keep things light. But I kept looking toward the trees. Something was out there. Around midnight, I woke up to the sound of breathing, not from the tents, from the woods. Deep, ragged, too loud to be a person. It came in uneven bursts, like whatever it belonged to had trouble controlling its lungs. Jess stirred beside me. "You hear that?" I whispered. She nodded, eyes wide. And then came the smell. It hit like rot and wet dog, mixed with copper and something meaty. It filled the tent, clinging to the fabric, to our clothes. Jess gagged. I nearly did too. Outside, something moved. A low groan rattled the trees, like an old floorboard warping under weight. Then a thud, and another, like something walking on two legs, each step crushing the earth beneath it. I held my breath and reached for the zipper, just enough to peek through. At first, I thought I saw a shadow, but it wasn't moving like a shadow. It was too still, like a cutout pasted over the world. 7, maybe 8 feet tall, wide shoulders, fur like dripping moss, and eyes, just faint reflections of the firelight, low and far apart. Then it sniffed, loud, guttural. It tilted its head, straight at our tent. "Don't move," I whispered. Jess was already frozen. A stick cracked behind Sasha and Caleb's tent. The thing grunted, a low, wet sound that vibrated in my chest. And then it charged. The scream tore through the clearing. It wasn't human, not entirely. Part Caleb, part Sasha, and something else. Something primal. Something being dragged. Jess and I burst from our tent. My flashlight jittered through the trees and caught a glimpse of fur and flailing limbs as something enormous disappeared into the woods with Sasha. "Sasha!" Jess screamed. We ran. God help me. We ran toward the scream. The forest swallowed the light. Branches tore at our arms. The stink of rot was everywhere. Ahead, we heard crashing, a horrible howl, and then nothing. We searched until dawn. Caleb's arm was bleeding. He said something had swatted their tent like a toy. He barely got out before it reached in and dragged Sasha by the ankle. "No way that was a bear," he said, eyes wide and hollow. "Bears don't walk like that, don't sound like that." It looked at me. It knew. We hiked out, shaking, silent, and bloody. Back at the car, we called the police. The search lasted 5 days. Dozens of officers, forest rangers, dogs, even a helicopter. The dogs wouldn't go more than a mile into the woods. The chopper pilot reported seeing a large, upright figure moving in the canopy. But the footage was too blurry. The radio went to static. Locals joined in, talking in hushed tones about old Abenaki legends, Wendigo stories, forest devils. One old man shook his head and said, "It's back." They found nothing, not a scrap of her clothes. Not a single track after the tree line. We gave interviews, told our story. The official report called it a suspected animal attack. Case closed. That was 6 months ago. I haven't been right since. I wake up to that breathing. I still smell it when the wind shifts. Sometimes I see shadows in the trees outside my apartment, tall and still. Jess doesn't speak much anymore. Caleb moved to Arizona. Says the desert feels safer, emptier. I've gone back once. Just once. I stood at the gate where the sign used to be. No birds, no wind. And from the trees, I heard it. A long, slow breath. Wet, guttural, like it never left, like it was waiting. Most people who know me think I'm a rational guy, practical, grounded. Hell, I make a living off precision, land surveying. Details are everything in that line of work. You learn to trust your instruments, your eyes, your gut. But there's one thing I've never been able to square. One night. One impossible night in the woods of Wyoming. I've never told a soul, not my brother, not my ex-wife, not my closest friends. Because no matter how level-headed you are, nobody ever really believes in things that don't fit neatly into a story they've heard before. But I lived it. I saw it. And it changed the way I look at the woods forever. It was October 1997. I'd taken 2 weeks of unpaid leave. I told people I needed time to clear my head, but that was just an excuse. The truth was, I wanted to be away from people, to feel small under the sky again. Wyoming has a way of putting you in your place like that. Cold air, endless trees, and no one around to hear your thoughts if they start turning on you. I drove up to the edge of Medicine Bow National Forest in my old Chevy S10, parked it where the trail faded, and hiked in about 8 miles on foot. There was this place I remembered from my teens, where my brother and I camped once. A flat clearing ringed with lodgepole pine and thick aspen, the trees so tall and tightly packed that it muffled everything. You could scream at the top of your lungs out there, and no one would hear it. Perfect. I made camp around 4 p.m. Tent pitched, bedroll inside, fire pit dug. I gathered wood, stripped some dry bark for kindling, and set up a tripod over the fire to hang my little mess tin. The temperature was already dropping. That bone-dry Wyoming chill you feel in your fingertips first, like they're slowly turning to stone. By nightfall, I had a good blaze going. I opened a dented can of Dinty Moore stew, dumped it in the pot, and sat on a wide, half-rotted log just outside the fire's heat. My old aluminum lantern hung on a branch behind me, casting a faint secondary glow. As I ate, I let my ears take in the forest. It's hard to explain to people who don't spend time out there, but the woods breathe at night. There's a rhythm, the wind rustling needles, the chitter of insects, the faint hoot of an owl calling somewhere far off. It's a symphony, quiet and alive. I remember thinking how perfect it was, just me, my food, the fire, the stars overhead. And then it changed, not all at once, like a dimmer being turned. First, the crickets stopped. Then the breeze that had been whispering through the pine needles just quit. No rustling, no distant birds. The fire still burned, but the world around it held its breath. There's a kind of silence out there that you can feel, heavy, unnatural. Every hair on my arm stood up. I held my breath and turned slightly, trying not to make noise as I scanned the darkness beyond the fire. I didn't reach for my flashlight. I don't know why. Maybe I was scared of what it might reveal. That's when I heard it. A slow, deliberate crunch of needles and underbrush. Then another, 2-footed, measured, the cadence of something walking upright. Not a deer, not a bear, something else. My stomach turned to ice. The steps stopped just beyond the tree line, right at the edge of the fire's reach. I could feel something standing there, watching me. The pressure of its presence was so intense it made my vision feel narrower, like the air itself was contracting. Then it stepped into the light. It was enormous. I'd say 8 to 9 feet tall, but it wasn't just the height, it was the mass. Its shoulders were easily 4 feet across, covered in thick, shaggy hair that hung in matted strands, dark reddish-brown with streaks of black. The hair on its forearms was longer, almost like dreadlocks. Its chest was barrel-shaped, and I could see the slow rise and fall of its breathing, steam puffing from its wide nostrils. Its hands hung low, too low. The arms were ape-like, but the posture was straight, upright, human, but wrong. The fingers curled slightly as it walked, thick and gnarled, like it could rip a tree stump out of the ground without effort. But it was the face that froze me. Not beast, not man, somewhere in between. Heavy brow ridge, deep-set eyes that gleamed in the firelight, catching reflections like an animal's, but filled with awareness, intelligence. It looked at me like I was a puzzle, or maybe a trespasser. Its mouth didn't move, but I swear to God I felt something coming off it. A kind of hum. Not sound, not thought, but pressure. Like being underwater too long, the way it makes your ears pulse. A vibration in the chest. We stared at each other. The fire cracked once, a log shifting. The thing didn't flinch. Its breath was deep and steady. I could smell it then, thick and earthy, wet soil, pine sap, musk, and something else, like rotting leaves. It wasn't awful, but it was wild, untamed. The fear I felt wasn't sharp or sudden. It was ancient, primal, a sensation older than words. I was completely still, like prey, hoping not to be seen, though I knew it had seen me the moment it arrived. Then, after what felt like hours, maybe just a minute, it blinked. Just once. A slow, heavy lid moving over a dark, knowing eye. It turned its head to the right, looked out into the woods, then back to me. One more deep breath. Then it took a step forward, not toward me, but around the fire pit. Just one. The earth shuddered beneath its weight. Then it kept walking. It passed by my campsite like I was no more significant than a squirrel. Walked right into the trees, vanishing into the dark with barely a sound, as if the forest had opened to let it through. I sat there, staring at the spot where it had stood. My food had gone cold. The fire hissed softly, and the crickets began to chirp again, hesitantly at first, then stronger, as if the world had decided it was safe to resume. But it didn't feel safe. I didn't sleep that night. Every twig snap beyond the trees made my blood run cold. I packed up before sunrise, barely bothering to clean up. I hiked out in record time, nearly running at points, and didn't stop until I hit my truck. I never told anyone. What would I say? Hey, I saw Bigfoot, but he was polite about it. Number, I knew what I saw, and I know how it felt. That thing didn't just pass through my campsite. It passed through me, like a window opened into something older than this world, something not meant for us. Sometimes at night, I still think about those eyes, how calm they were, how heavy with knowledge. That thing wasn't just an animal. It wasn't a missing link. It was something else. Something that watches. And I believe, truly, that it let me see it. That night didn't scare me because of what happened. It scared me because of what didn't happen. Because something that big, that quiet, that smart, could have done anything it wanted. And it chose to walk away.